think that's a real takeaway, that despite all of these things that are wrong about the system, despite all of these fights and despite all of these challenges and all these years waiting for an infrastructure system to actually show dignity, we still choose the bike. We choose it on a daily basis because despite the dangers, despite the challenges, it's still our preferred choice. So that tells you something.
Welcome to That's Her Problem, the podcast where women who lead, connect, and rewrite the rules get real about building community. The challenges we face aren't always the same as everyone else's. But here's the truth. A city that's good for women is good for everyone. I'm your host, Pattie Weens. Today we start a string of interviews with bike people. Don't blame me, the bike makes me crazy, and if it doesn't, you ain't doing it right. But I digress. If you know anything about me, you also know that I believe the bicycle has a way of connecting us to our communities. And I mean all the communities we bike through, not just the ones we live in. I talk about this in my book, That'll Never Work Here. You can pre-order my book from any bookstore or request it from your library. It's coming out in October 2025. My guest today is also an author, and her name is also Pattie Baker. I met her through the Bicycle Mayor Network. One of the features of this network is that we have these regular calls where we check in with each other, talk about initiatives we're working on, and tips and tricks for advocacy. In our last call, I became enamored with Pattie because she's warm and kind, and she talked about her book. So I was intrigued to find out more. Thank you for joining me on That's Her Problem, Pattie. The reason you're here is because we met through the Bicycle Mayor Network, bikes.org. And when I saw that you wrote this book, Round America with a Duck, which I got right here. Here we go. I kind of became obsessed with finding out more about you. I just thought that was so cool. So I have some questions about your trip, but I really want to hear your story because you were about to turn 60 when you decided to do this on your own. So whatever comes before that, I feel like that really needs to be told.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Pattie, from Pattie to Pattie. It's so great from across borders and in partnership with the Bicycle Mayors. I was a previous Bicycle Mayor for Metro Atlanta. But, I'm one of those people who I think like you have ridden my bike my whole life. And I was born in 1963. So when I actually was, 9 years old or so, 5 to 15 years old, that was actually the biggest bike boom in American history at that time. So, that was actually just a very big part of my growing up. So years passed, I rode bikes, all that good stuff. But I think the thing that was my big impetus for getting back into it was after I got married, I got this road bike when we moved from New York to Atlanta. And when I had the kids, the road bike went up into the attic.
Right.
And
as it does.
As it does. And I would go up there every year. And I got like another bike that I was able to put, the lunches and violins and everything else to go back and forth to school with my daughters. But every year I'd go back up in that attic and see the road bike just sort of lying there, kind of a reminder of its former self. And maybe it reminded me a little bit of something in my former self as well. And so finally, every year, is this the year? Is this the year I'm going to take it down? And finally the year came and I did take it down. And I think it was up in that attic for 20 years. 20 years. And always like, what's it going to take to get it back ready for the road? And there's other priorities and blah, blah, blah. It took me $35 to put that bike back on the road. I was for 20 years, I was $35 away from who I used to be. And with all with all of the additional joys of, the years that happened, all the things that happened during those 20 years. So I took that bike down, and then that's when I kind of like full-fledged got back into the whole bike thing again. And that was probably about 10 years ago. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
not
And
that
then,
long ago,
right.
right?
And then, yeah. So then a whole lot of stuff has happened since then. So that brings me to here.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
cool. And
Yeah.
so tell me about becoming the bicycle mayor of Atlanta.
Well, that was, I guess in 2017 or so, I got a job teaching bike skills specifically to girls and women and seniors in a city nearby. And they put me through the League of American Bicyclists cycling instructor training program. And so that was great. And I was writing full time and also teaching bike skills. Women and girls are my passion. I have two daughters. I'm really committed to women in public space. So I did that for a while, and then COVID hit, and I got hit. So the
Oh,
first year of COVID is when a driver hit me when I was riding my bike. I ended up okay, as one does, but that's something that really does change you a bit. And part of my recovery was to write articles and research women who were doing wonderful things. And through that process, I was able to interview Jen, who is the CEO of People for Bikes, and she had gotten me involved as an ambassador with that program. And through that, somehow I found out about BYCS and the bikes and the Bike Mayor program. And so, as kind of part of my recovery, is when I applied to become the bicycle mayor. I just, you get when something like that happens to you, it's easy to kind of close in. And I didn't want to lose this kind of lifelong joy that I had and this freedom. And I just tried to turn out as much as I could. And so that's when I got involved with that. And so I did that for the next 2 years, and it was a really great experience. And especially seeing folks from all over the world and the amazing things that are happening. There's so much good happening. It
there
was
really is.
important to see. Yeah.
And there are a lot of women involved in bikes, I noticed as well. Was there a lot of women when you joined? So that was during the beginning of COVID,
Yeah, it
so
was
2020?
2020. Yeah, 2020 to 2022. And yeah, there's definitely more. It seems like there's been more and more all the time. And that's really great to see. Really
Well, you
necessary.
see a space with women and you say, okay, this is a friendly space for women. I'm going to join as well, right? And it's good to have that kind of representation.
I mean, it's just necessary to have that voice at the table, as you know. And the perspective is different. The actual researched rubber hits the road experiences that we have are different. So they need to be normalized and recognized and represented, and infrastructure changes need to be made to accommodate that, not just for our safety, but for the vibrancy of our communities.
So, have you done a lot of advocacy or activism in Atlanta? Tell me a little bit. Are you one of those advocates that is really, present at City Hall? Here we have what we call delegations, where we can show up and speak in favor or against a motion that's presented at City Hall. Do you
Yeah.
have that there, and how does that work?
Well, I didn't intend to. I didn't intend to become an advocate, probably like a lot of us. And
You just wanted to ride your bike.
the joke I have is all roads lead to City Hall when you're riding your bicycle, right?
Oh,
And
that's a great line.
I
I love
know.
it.
I mean, you end up there at some point. And I live in a suburb of Atlanta that actually became the newest city in the United States in 2008. And I'm a journalist, and I have blogs and books and articles and all that kind of stuff, worked for companies. And I was just covering the story. I was just like, oh, how cool. And my daughters were, I think, like 8 and 13 years old at the time. And I was like, oh, this is super cool. We have a front row seat at the creation of a new city, and what decisions are going to be made at this really interesting time. It was 2008. There was a lot of talk about triple bottom line sustainability. There had just been this new program launched in Metro Atlanta about green communities by the Atlanta Regional Commission. And the timing seemed really advantageous to be making some of these sort of ordinances and policies right from the beginning. So I really got involved just to sort of cover the story. And then City Hall named me the head of the Sustainability Commission. So,
Okay.
which, yeah, it was, a whole like jump in the deep end of, how local government works. And I have to say, it was super fun because starting a new city really attracted a lot of startup people, really entrepreneurial spirit, a lot of can-do dreamers. And we had fun and we got stuff done. And we really did build into the DNA of the city these principles of sustainability that are still in place today, 16 years later. So that was super fun. And so, yes, I was at City Hall like all the time. I don't know.
Sometimes you get a job at City Hall, kind of like, to quiet you down, so that you
Yeah.
don't become, the person on the other side fighting for change. But
Yeah.
you were able to start, and did you find that you were able to put policies in place for active
Yeah. Right.
transportation?
I mean, the beauty of it is the folks who had, our mayor and first city councilors, all the founders of the city, it was all new to them too. So nobody was a hardened bureaucrat. Everyone was really working as a team to try to make really the best city that we could. And it was really exciting. So it was a unique experience. I know a lot of folks have really kind of difficult experiences with their cities. I mean, it's kind of changed over time, and a lot of the entrepreneurs, just like with any startup, have moved on, and it has become more bureaucratic, and change has been very slow, and the dreams have been compromised on and watered down. So that's frustrating to see,
Yeah,
especially when I know
absolutely.
know what the original vision was, and that it was so possible.
Okay, so then there was an original dream that kind of got watered down. Okay, so what is your bicycle network right now?
Um, a little bit of great and a little bit of big time greenwashing. I think like a lot of cities, all the bike lanes are too narrow and unprotected. However, there's some really, really beautiful paths and, lots of plans that win awards. So, a lot of years have passed now. And like I always say, children don't wait, they grow up. And mine have, that 8 and 13-year-old are now 25 and 30, and they've yet to ride a bike on this promised land. So I think that's where it probably lit the fire under me for representing women and girls, because our specific lived experiences are very different in public space, and we're continually being marginalized. And it's short-sighted, of course, on the point of view of the city, because we are the economic drivers of all consumer purchases, making 80% of them, making or influencing 80% of them. And people on bikes shop local more often. This keeps more money circulating in the local economy, all those good things. So it's really just money on the table that's being lost, when we're not accommodating folks who are really in support of our local, economy. And as we know, of course, that when you make things safer for women and girls, you make it safer for everybody. And we've got this aging population. There's folks with disabilities. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why, universal design benefits everybody. So I try to represent all of that, or I have tried to represent all of that in the past. Now I've kind of moved on to some other ways of advocating, but I did do my fair share of years of that. And one of the things I think I'm proud of is that it's on the record. It's if there are new younger folks who are coming on board and their children are having trouble getting to school safely or whatever, and they go into the archives now in the city. I've put in those arguments. I have been at those meetings. I have represented those points of view. There's precedent for different things. So maybe their journey will already have a start for them. That's my hope.
Is there a group advocating for more protected bike lanes right now where you are?
Yeah, I mean, we did have a group, and the good news is that the head of that group is now on city council, and he continues to advocate and whatever. There's a whole lot of lip action for it, and has been for a lot of years. I mean, he's in there fighting all the time, and some of the other city councilors are as well. But I mean, my position on this has gotten very simple, that if we wanted to be bike friendly, we would be. It's not hard. So anyone who's saying it's hard and it takes 20 years, it actually doesn't. So, I mean, if there was some kind of an incredible emergency or disaster or something like that, we'd be bike friendly in 2 days. So it's
I
really,
agree.
It's not that hard. It's really not that hard.
It's the political will to take the space away from cars, right? To just say, no, we need this. We don't need these many lanes. And
right. And it's also, anytime there's construction done and they've got the cones up for 3 months, and all of a sudden we have these de facto protected lanes just because there's construction. It's really just not that hard. So I don't get too caught up in City Hall anymore. I've kind of found new ways to shine a light forward.
Okay, so tell me about these new ways. What are you doing to shine? I know that you have a few books written, but tell me a little bit about how you are shining the light forward right now.
Well, what I have learned through the advocacy work and all of the thousands of words that I've written in books and blogs and articles, all of the times I've shown up at City Hall, what I have learned is that the thing that speaks loudest is simply my presence in public space as a woman alone on a bike. And especially now as an aging woman alone on a bike, doing normal everyday things. Running, I use my bike as my primary transportation. I go food shopping. I bring my Christmas tree home on it. I chopped bamboo and dragged that to a garden. I do it all.
Wait. On your road bike?
No, I've got a little collection of bikes that I use for different purposes. Yeah, but I have a little cart.
You do.
Yeah, I have a little cart that I hook on the back of one of them, and I just do everything I possibly can on it, and I do it on purpose because I know that, if no change happens within my lifetime, I mean, there comes to a point when you have to accept that the change may not happen here. But what does happen, I'm also a huge farmer and community gardener. And what does happen is I plant seeds. And I plant seeds that I may or may not see grow within my lifetime. And one of those seeds that I plant is the seed of an idea for kids that are in the back of motor vehicles. Because I almost, hardly ever see kids on bikes. I even heard one kid say one time, I can't wait till I grow up and I can ride a bike.
Aw, that's so
I know.
sweet.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, sad to think that, they think that's something that a grown-up does, I mean, we do see some kids, but once they outgrow the cul-de-sac, that's kind of the end of it, But I do hope I'm planting a seed in some minds, especially young girls. And I do see, I write about this in my books, I always have these experiences where girls in particular, when I'm on greenways or I'm in a park and I pass them and they're on a bike, they really maybe you've had this happen to you too. They kind of stare at you, they kind of, they're kind of taking it in. They're, you can see that there's this message getting put on their head that
this is okay. This
right,
is okay.
Grown women ride bikes too.
I have a crown on my tiara, and I get a lot of attention whenever I wear it. Because I have kids and boys and girls and families looking and who does she think she is?
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
But I love that you say that, just by being a woman on a bike, you're taking up that space, that's that's a kind of resistance and activism, right? That is the language of the resistance, is just being present. I get a lot of people saying to me, oh my gosh, you do so many things, you're so busy, why do you do all these things? And I don't really get paid for advocacy work. You know how it is, you just do it. And I always say, I don't have a lot of bike lane years left. Right. When it comes to the creation of bike lanes, it seems like the city moves at the speed of molasses, and it's always about more money. But if you need something big built for cars, it's done quickly because we don't want to interrupt the flow of traffic, the
Right.
flow of car traffic, right? So
Right.
this excuse of the slowness of everything really gets to me. But you try to just keep going and keep going and keep riding your bike. And
Yeah.
I find that, are you finding that with the appearance of e-bikes, you're getting more of the older population trying to ride their bikes where
No,
you
because
are?
our roads are just they are simply too dangerous. The roads are actually not dangerous at all. The roads are beautiful. It's the drivers. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
it's beautiful pavement, but yeah, they are very dangerous. And there's a couple things that work in our favor here is that we are the only city in the state of Georgia that has made it legal to ride your bike on the sidewalk at any age. And I'm in suburbia. It's very spread out. So there's all the courtesies that you can imagine are in that ordinance or whatever it is, that you yield to people walking and people with wheelchairs, which again, I ride 10 to 20 miles a day and I see maybe one other person walking, and then like maybe one other person on a bike. So, and this is a family friendly city. So yeah, I am seeing a little bit more of the e-bikes and a little bit more of the older population, but more often than not, people tell me they're just too afraid. I mean, actually, and that's kind of my bridge to why I did that journey. There was a number of reasons why I traveled across the United States with my folding bike via buses and trains, and I worked on organic farms. I was gone for 5 months, 10,000 miles. And people said, well, aren't you scared? And I said, I was almost killed 1 mile from my house.
Exactly.
I mean, like, what's the difference?
Yes, during the beginning of the pandemic, when
Right.
collisions were down all over the world because
Right.
people weren't driving as much.
I
It's
know.
just
Well, it's kind of
horrible to
what's
think.
the difference? Like, so what, I'm going to sit in the bottom of the hill in suburbia because I'm afraid of everything? No. Like, these are our
I know.
choices. And especially as women, like, people are like, well, as a woman alone, I mean, every time we leave the house, we've got the keys between our fingers. What's the difference? Like, what's the
Actually,
difference?
actually, this brings me to this passage in your book where you talk about riding your bike in Kansas, then getting a flat tire right as a tornado forms in the distance, and being offered a ride from a man in a truck.
Yeah.
And whenever I see a scene like this one in a movie, and then the woman jumps in without hesitation, I know the movie was written by a man. When you describe the scene, you go into detail about what went through your mind at that moment. And I'm just going to read a couple of lines.
Oh,
And it's your
you
narrative
make me
that.
want to cry. We're just remembering that moment.
Oh,
Yeah.
the narrative of what happened after he offered you the ride, saying you shouldn't be out there. You say, I thanked him, and then we both just looked at each other silently a moment. The unspoken words were, do you want to get into a truck with a strange man and save your life? And I think that says so much about how we feel in society all the time. Even more so lately, the joke that you would choose the bear, or in
Right.
your case, the tornado.
Right.
So you're also, like you said, a road violence survivor. So were there a lot of moments on your trip when you had to make decisions like that? And for the listeners who don't know what your book is about, you
Yeah.
were traveling around America, doing multimodal trips with a folding bike, and you had this little duck
Yeah, my
on the
duck.
front. Do you have it
It's
here?
my little duck.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Now I want one. Then you had it in the front of your bike,
Yeah.
and it spurred a lot of conversation. But you did all this trip, and how long were you gone for?
5 months.
5 months on your own with your folding bike, in and out of buses, trains,
Yeah. All
right?
hours of the day and night. And that, I mean, that alone. Amtrak and Greyhound, let me tell you. Greyhound, let me tell you, that was, I mean, there's the thing about Greyhound is a lot of the buses, there's one a day. One a day. And if anything happens with that bus,
You're
I
a
mean,
day behind.
you are stranded. you are stranded. And then a number of these bus stations, they like close. It's not like you're even sleeping in bus stations overnight. I mean, all kinds of things happened across the United States. And I just wanted to throw myself into it because it was at a time of such divide. I mean, it's obviously still at a time of such divide here in the United States, but this was kind of like a few years into COVID. I hadn't really been traveling really much at all. Everything was really just depending on the news every day, and the news was always bad. I wanted to find the good. I really wanted to find the good for myself and to remind myself that, I still had freedom in a lot of ways. So that's what I set out to find. It was super scary. Yeah. Did things like that happen? Well, first of all, I mean, I was thinking back, I have such a joy today listening to some of your YouTube videos.
Oh, really?
And
Thank you.
And one is you were talking about the idea of that line there from Kansas about trying to decide whether to get in the truck or to live, You have a line, I think it was in your Calgary section of your Sao Paulo Calgary comparison.
Right, that said, I did with Tom Bambin, yes.
Yeah, you said the bar is low. We just want to arrive alive. And it's kind of like the fact that that's the low bar living, just that's, and that, to that point, that's a line I think to myself a lot, especially after surviving the road violence. I always think to myself, it's kind of an old New York saying. It's like a hero ain't nothing but a sandwich, because you feel, especially like as a league cycling instructor and blah, 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 like there I am, like on the sidewalk with my folding bike and my duck, I'm riding way below my skill level when I'm doing that. And you kind of feel a little, I don't know, a little yucky. However, I would like to arrive home alive. And there are times I have to do that. Absolutely, and that's just the way. It's either ride with those safety with those choices, or don't ride. And what I can say, oh hey, look at you. I'm on the phone. I'm on a phone right now, but I'm so happy to see you riding your bike. Okay, I'll see you soon. Okay, bye, sweetie.
What happened? Tell me. We're dying here. You're going to cry and you're going to make me cry. I know this already. Aww.
I didn't plan that.
You did not plan this. Tell me.
That was this little neighbor girl. She's 7. Okay. She just came up my driveway on her bike with her helmet on to say hi.
Because
and she learned. I know she learned how to ride her bike like during COVID. She and her sister. And there's this little girl gang in my neighborhood, and I come flying down I live at the bottom of this big hill, and they're all like in the cul-de-sac and stuff. They're so cool, and I come flying down the hill, like ringing my bell and my little duck, and I just see them. I mean, that's it. Like, you know what?
That's it.
You can have City Hall. I'm taking the cul-de-sac.
That's amazing. That's so great. It's funny you say that, because that is the reminder, the ultimate reminder of why we keep doing these things.
That's it.
And why we lose sleep, and why we put in 60 hours a week outside of our full-time jobs to fight.
Yeah.
Because it's not about us anymore. I'm confident enough to go on the road.
Right.
But if we want more women and children to do it, we're going to have to finish our network. We're going to have to make it protected.
Yeah.
We had a cyclist be killed last year here.
I know.
In June.
I saw that.
Right. And so we were criticized in the newspapers, being called the all-powerful bike lobby, using this man's death to further our agenda. And our agenda is to arrive alive.
Right.
Why is that so much to ask?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, I saw those stickers. I bought 5 of those
Yes, I
stickers.
saw you bought the stickers. I was
Yeah,
just going to send them to you.
I know. I bought those stickers that say "Politicize my death," and I have a City Hall bike ride coming up that I may or may not go on. But I'm thinking if I do, I'm going to bring those stickers.
I'm going to send you way more than 5. I saw your order
So,
today. I'm going to send you way more than that. Listen,
yeah, I'll
we
pass them out. All
raised.
right, maybe I will go then, and I'll pass them out
Yes, I'm going to make you go.
because I
You know,
know
we raised over $2,000 with the
it's
sale of
really
those
good.
stickers, and we presented it to a school, and they're going to buy helmets with the money and lights for bikes and teach kids how to safely use
Yeah.
the bicycle network and the streets and
Mm-hmm.
crossing. And so I'm really excited. Thank you for helping that
Yeah.
cause.
No, that's great. Like, yeah, it's unfortunately I try to go to every ghost bike memorial and I documented them across the country and fortunately very familiar with them. So I appreciate what you're doing. And it's
Well,
just absolutely heartbreaking.
it really is. And one of the things you and I talked about is the way that most North American bike networks are so linear, right? And often they only offer a straight line to business centers or
Mm-hmm.
downtown. And women, on the other hand, we already talked about how we
Mm-hmm.
do trip chaining. It's not a straight pattern. We use more of a zigzag pattern, making
Right.
stops at local shops and spending money.
Mm-hmm.
But why is it that there's so much pushback when the evidence is so clear that more women riding bikes is better? And when the
Mm-hmm.
bike network isn't finished, women don't ride bikes, right? In Sao
Mm-hmm.
Paulo, when we were there, we noticed they have these beautiful, I'm sure you saw it, the beautiful bike lanes, but they're in the middle of the road.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah, because they
Washington,
don't want to.
D.C. has those. Yeah.
Exactly. They don't want to take
Yeah.
space away from cars, so they put it in the boulevard. And it's
Yeah.
great. They're beautiful bike lanes, and they're not going to be removed because
Mm-hmm.
they're not in the way of cars. But they don't really offer that trip chaining. So we never see
Mm-hmm.
women riding bikes there. We saw maybe 3 or 4 women riding bikes in Sao Paulo. And it's a huge city. We spent 4 days and rode many kilometers,
Yeah.
but we didn't see a lot of women. What can we do to convince our political
Yeah.
leaders of the importance of a complete bike network?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is we hold the economic power. So we could just not make any purchases tomorrow if we work together, but we don't. So I think the question is less what can we do to persuade City Hall and less what can we do to work together as women to shut things down. Because
Yes.
we actually have that power and we could do it tomorrow. So yeah, I'm not really in the business anymore of trying to beg anyone or explain anyone or try to talk anyone into things that make perfect sense to me.
I love this so much.
Yeah, I'm really just in the business of exercising my power. And I know I have economic power when I ride my bike and I vote with my dollars for the places that want my business. And it's as simple as that. I mean, I ran a couple little numbers here. There were 2 supermarkets nearby, and one had a bike rack, and the one directly across the street did not. So I patronized the one with the bike rack, and over a number of years, I determined that I had spent $40,000 at that supermarket, $100 a week. Okay, over
Wow.
a handful of years. $100 a week is not much. When you're shopping for a family, whatever. I probably spent more, and that was just you stopped 3 times a week or something on your bike. It doesn't take much to run up to $100 anymore. That was for the price of a bike rack. So, and the thing is, the business across the street does not know that they lost $40,000. They don't know that unless we work together to let them know that. And frankly, I'm not looking to spend my time informing them. I'm just making the supermarket with the bike rack richer. And I'm just voting with my dollars for the places that have bike racks. It's just really as simple as that, and it's their job to catch on. I'm not that interested, but I'll let them know, like, especially if they do have a bike rack and they don't, and there's a disconnect in their system, or some little thing that they can do to make it, more accessible for people on bikes. I can let them know, like, this one supermarket has a bike rack, but they keep putting their plants and all their outdoor things for sale that are sort of blocking one side of the bike rack. And so I brought that to their attention, and now they don't do that. And now you can park 2 bikes there instead of 1. It's little things like that.
And do you see other bikes parked?
Yeah, I do. That's where the problem started, because there are more bikes than that. And then there's this coffee shop nearby me who, I'm working with them now to get some bike racks in. I mean, whatever, you do what you can, but I'm kind of looking to use my economic power, and folks are going to catch on or they're not. And I'm less interested in trying to talk people into things that make perfect sense. And I mean, there might be folks that are in a different spot on this advocacy journey. I am trying really hard to center the fun and the joy. I mean, I think at its heart, we get into bikes and we continue riding bikes. Like, for instance, your wonderful YouTube video about when you started winter cycling, and once you did it that first time and you got to work and your chest is puffed out and you're kind of like, yeah, like, I'm in it, I mean, it's such a great feeling, and it's irreplaceable, the joy. And so for me now, I'm just not really interested in anyone getting in the way of my joy when I ride my bike. And so I find that a joy-based approach also attracts a certain type of person, maybe some different people, new people. And it's just a better fit for where I am in the advocacy world. I'm just not that interested in. I really only like to do uphills on my bike.
Wow, so many good quotes I'm getting here. You're going to see me using these everywhere.
I know. Yeah. Like, when you start
I ride an e-bike, so I really don't mind the hills at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But as soon as someone starts in with all the reasons why you can't do something, I'm just like, I mean, obviously it's not true. Obviously you can. Obviously it's not that hard. So if we're starting to get that pushback, I often say, like, every city, every person has a path and a pace. And if they're not there yet, they're just not there yet, And so we kind of chip away at it, but, beating our head against the wall is not the way forward.
No.
Like, just when we're riding our bikes, like you were saying, like, when you're riding in the snow and you have to allow double the time when it's the winter, because you have to change your route a little. You have to climb over, snow drifts. You have to do various things. Like, if we just keep pounding in the same direction, we're just not going to get around the snow. So I keep trying to find the joy-based way forward. And it's there. It's always there. And that's part of, like, why the journey was such a challenge and a joy, because I was able to navigate it in the way that made sense for me.
Yeah, you repeat that quite a bit, finding the joy. You just, like, focused on finding the joy everywhere you went on your journey.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're doing the same every single day. You decide, no, I'm
Right.
going to find the joy in this moment, right?
Well, I do think that is a radical act. I think that the joy is an act of resistance.
Is the resistance, yes.
Yeah.
You did say that in
Yeah.
your book as well. I read that today.
Yeah.
The joy is the act of resistance.
Right. And it's easy to kind of, to some folks can treat you like you're not taking it seriously, or that you're not making an impact, or you're not, I don't know what
making a difference.
Yeah. And I think it's actually 100% the opposite. So
yeah, you attract more people with that joy.
Proof,
exactly.
Yeah, the
She's
proof
the
was in the
example.
pudding. I know.
Right.
So, I mean, do you find that in your journey as well?
I started with a lot of joy, and it was all about the joy, even though I was suffering from road violence, not in a, I've never been hit, I've never been in a collision, but I did have a really scary encounter not too long ago about someone who kind of threatened me, but it was kind of a creepy threat, and
Yeah.
and I think of the times that all I posted about was joy, joy, how much joy it brings me, sort of hiding the hard side of things, because if you want more people to ride bikes, you have to show how awesome it is. Yeah, and there's some hard times, but I'd still rather ride my bike than take the bus or drive
Right.
anywhere. Any time of the
Yeah.
year. Yes, there's some hard days, but that's why you make a decision which day you're going to be grumpy and take the bus or drive,
Right.
right?
Right.
But I
But to
found
that, but
that
to that point, but to that point, the multimodal power is, again, this is the way we're showing the wide variety of ways to work a bike into your life. I often have a bike in the back of my car that if I drive somewhere, I'll stop. I know where to stop along the way, even if it's just knocking out a mile or two or whatever. It doesn't have to be 60 miles in Lycra.
yes,
It's,
exactly.
you
It
can,
doesn't have to be all of it, right?
right, exactly. And especially, if it's raining or whatever. Okay, so maybe you drive part way or take a bus part way and then ride your bike the rest of the way. It just takes 2 minutes on the bike to get the thrill, so it
Yeah,
doesn't,
exactly.
it doesn't have to be, there are lots of days it's a 1 mile day for me, and it's more than enough,
I always
so
say that it takes 3 rounds on the pedals for me to
yeah,
forget all about how cold it is outside. If it's blizzarding or raining, 3 rounds, three
yeah,
pedals, and I'm happy that I chose the bike instead
yeah.
of
Well, to
anything
that,
else.
to
Yeah.
that point, like when we talk about the hard things, again, I think that's a real takeaway, that despite all of these things that are wrong about the system, despite all of these fights and despite all of these challenges and all these years waiting for for an infrastructure system to actually show dignity, we still choose the bike. We choose it on a daily basis because despite the dangers, despite the challenges, it's still our preferred choice. So that tells you something.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I totally feel this. And there is nothing wrong with joy being your act of activism and
Yeah.
joy being your act of resistance and
Mm-hmm.
pushing for that. And the more people see you, the more people will ride. And the more people riding, the more pressure we put in our governments and our leaders, right? I do have
Yeah.
this weird feeling though when you tell me that you're allowed to ride in sidewalks. That's car infrastructure right there. Don't take up space on the roads. You're allowed to go on the sidewalks. It's just showing that kind of preference of we'd rather you bother the pedestrians than be on the road. And you're saying
Yeah.
you're not getting a lot of pedestrians because people aren't
Right.
walking,
I'm
right?
right. There are, kind of depends. We have certain routes that are big runner routes, and then there's ones that go to places of worship that people do walk and things like that. So I have to choose my routes, accordingly based on the day of the week and this and that. I do travel with this, the stupidest pool noodle. I do that if I'm depending
Oh,
on. I do the pool noodle
really?
thing. Yeah, I have the sticker that I made that I put on it that says 3 feet to pass. It says thanks. And I wrote local mom on it, and it goes on the noodle, and it sticks out 3 feet. And
Do you
I
sell
it's
those?
oh yeah, I have it I can send you a link on it. I'll send you one.
Yes, please.
But yeah, I'll go 3 feet. I don't know. You guys, do you do 3 feet or you do meters? I guess.
1 meter is up. Well, right now we don't have anything, so it's up for a vote in the
Oh,
Highway Traffic Act to be 1 meter, which
oh
is
wow.
3 feet, right? It's a shame that we don't even
Yeah,
have that. Don't even get me started on our laws here.
yeah.
We are
Again, it
not
doesn't
allowed to
matter.
ride
It
on the
doesn't matter.
sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they passed that. They passed that the day that I was hit. So it was that night that they passed that. So, I was appreciative of that it was a recognition of, and it wasn't specifically other people had advocated for it, but I was appreciative of that, it was a recognition that our streets are unsafe and that it is going to take a while. However, I have also, again, back to the economic impact, I've documented, based on riding both in the street and on the sidewalk, that it takes 40% longer for me to get to my destinations when I ride on the sidewalk as opposed to on the street. And when you convert that into my hourly rates, for as a freelancer, that's money I'm losing on a daily basis because it's taking me longer to get to my destinations based on the safety disparity that's available to me. So between having to wait if there is a pedestrian, having to push beg buttons at the corners, all the different things. So, 40%, that's a 40% tax on my time. And these are the kinds of things that are really not documented or considered or cared about in our current city hall environments. And half my city hall is women. So I'm not blaming men here. Whatever's
Wow.
it's not like, we have a female mayor. We've got, this is not a men thing, and the city councilor who is doing the advocacy is a man. So this isn't a gender thing as far as our leadership is concerned. So, yeah. I
Wow,
don't
that's
know.
really striking. Huh.
I
We do
know.
find
So,
we do find that the women in our city hall, there aren't many, but they do often fight for safety, community services, and they are more vocal about that. But there are a lot more men, so it's hard to get past.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, there are things like you were saying, like what kinds. I was jotting down some notes before. I loved your, just listening to your commentary when you were riding around, because you sounded like, oh my gosh, you sounded like the thoughts in my own head when I'm riding, like, oh my gosh, what is this? How does this work?
Right.
Oh, this gets a bell, and this gets two demerits, and everything else. It was so cool. But things like, that they're building whatever, this path across America, that they're connecting all this stuff. Like, I am not going on this path across America unless it's safe for women. And it's currently like we're in the woods. Like, where's the balance in these conversations when we're talking about things like sight lines, escape routes, eyes on the path, emergency access? These are just basics, and they're creating all of these paths that are in flood zones, that are in the old rail beds. I love these. They're beautiful, but they're not transportation networks when it rains. They're not transportation networks at night when it's dark, which is after 5:30 at certain times of the year. They're not the answer, and they're not safe
You
for
just
women
want to get
alone.
to your grocery store. You don't need to get
Right.
across the country, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And also, right. Like and if when looking at it as a recreation route as opposed to a transportation route. So like some people say, oh, do you ride with cycling groups? And I'm like, I find they don't run errands. So, when I'm on my bike, like I haven't seen a cycling group that does stops for, dropping off the shoes to be rehealed, So, so,
Oh my god.
so
Ah,
not that those aren't great, but that just is not the kind of riding that I do at all,
this
Um,
is awesome.
so yeah, there's so many of those kinds of things. Even like our local mall and city hall, our bike racks at the mall and city hall, the bike racks are also the smoking section.
Oh yes, same here. Same here. It's like
And it's like you
so.
stand there and you're like, again, does anyone road test this stuff? Does
I know.
anyone say,
Was
yeah,
oh, and you have all these women at City Hall. That's
I
insane.
know.
That they're not thinking about it.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
that's it. You can spend your whole life like advocating when really all it takes is 5 minutes on a bike. And so you do try to get them out there with you, but again, that becomes, you spend 20 years. You spend 20, and all it takes is 5 minutes. 3 minutes if they
5 minutes.
bring a loved one. 3 minutes if they bring a loved one. Yeah, and that's it. The second they go out there, they'd be like, "Oh, I got it. I got it. This is a problem." you know.
We try to do that here a lot, take our city councilors on bike rides, and yet we haven't seen really the fast fruits of this kind of effort, right? This podcast is brought to you by me. I wrote a book called That'll Never Work Here. It's coming out on October 28, and you can pre-order it from wherever you get your books. You can also support me by going to pattiebikes.com/podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends, and make it their problem too. Well, we've arrived at the Thank You, Amy section of the show. And if the listener doesn't know what that means, they need to go to the first episode where I explain it. And let's just say the Swifties will know. So was there a time when you were underestimated and you turned that situation into an opportunity to succeed and even excel?
I love that question. I would say when I was hit, I think the instinct would be to not ride again. And I went cross country instead.
I love it. It's the best story. It's the best way to turn that around. Watch me. Not only am I going to go across the country, I'm going to do it on a folding bike by using the bus systems, and I'm going to take my duck with me. I'm going to do it by myself and write a book.
Yeah. So, I think that was a good one. I kind of just, that was helpful. You know, it was helpful to me, and a kind of a reminder that, you know, that I did have some personal power, and I could direct it in the direction of my dreams. Despite everything. Yeah.
So this section is called the rapid fire section, where I'm going to ask you a bunch of little questions, and you don't know the questions ahead of time because I didn't tell you. So the first one is, if you were a bicycle, what kind of bicycle would you be and why?
Oh gosh. Well, I have different bikes that remind me of kind of horses in a stable, and one is sort of my thoroughbred, and one is sort of the school horse, and one is the pony. But I think my favorite is the one I refer to as my donkey.
Okay.
And I think what I love about that one is it's kind of, you know, just sort of big and goofy and has streamers and a funny bell, and it just makes people happy. And I think that's the kind of bike I like. And I paint all my bikes. All my bikes are painted multicolor, and they cause a lot of conversation. And I think I'd like to be the kind of bike that just makes people smile and have conversation on corners, picking blackberries.
I love it. It's perfect for you. But I'm still curious. Is this bike like a beach bike, like a cruiser type of?
Yeah, this is the one in particular I'm talking about. A friend had sort of picked out of a garbage and fixed up for me. Its name is Magic. Yeah.
Oh, I love it so much.
And I said, I told someone once, this bike is magic. It was someone on mass transit, and I said, this bike is magic, and he said, aren't they all? And so that's a good reminder.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, the second question is, what is your superpower? I think already now.
I know. I mean, it's either my superpower or my greatest flaw, but I am really hopelessly optimistic, and I really do believe in the possibility of good and of change and of joy. Yeah.
Perfect. My best friend is the same way, and I love that about her.
Oh.
And she is constantly kind of bringing me back from when I go to the dark places, you know, and you have to have a person like that, and everyone that surrounds you is so lucky to have that.
The trend on TikTok right now is the shimmy a day. Have you seen that? It's like a shimmy a day keeps the sad away, and it's like...
Okay.
So yeah, if the bike doesn't work for you, the dancing will, you know.
Oh, I love it so much. That's great. What is your favorite book by a female author?
Oh, I love this question. Actually, you did tip me off on this question.
Yes, this one I did. Yes, because I wanted you to be prepared.
Well, I gave it extra thought, and I have a different one than the one I had talked about. It's called, this book here, it's called Wheels of Change. Have you ever seen this book? It is
No, I have
so
not.
ridiculously beautiful, and it's about how women rode the bicycle to freedom. And it's called Wheels of Change. It's by a woman named Sue Macy, and it's like a picture. It's like I don't know, it's kind of a children's book, but not. And it goes through sort of the history from like 1890s, 1900, when and why women were emancipated more or less through bicycles. And it's a nice reminder, I think, to me and us that this tool is still available for us, and it still holds that power. And we take it for granted a little bit, but there are women who it was really an amazing tool of change at a critical time, and I would love to see that, rise to that level of power again.
I love it. So,
Yeah.
what is next now for you, and where can we find out more about you?
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I did, after I came back from the trip across the United States and did Round America with a duck. I have another one called Traveling at the Speed of Bike, by the way. But I went to Ireland and I did the same thing. And I traveled across Ireland via buses and trains. I used bikes all over, and I volunteered on organic farms across Ireland. And so I'm working on the book for that, and that'll be coming out within the next maybe 6 to 8 months or so. It's called Round Ireland with a Duck, of course. It's the
Oh, I
sequel
love it.
to
That's
Round
good
America with a
sequel.
Duck, and that's actually why the duck's bill got painted green for Ireland. Um, so yes, I've been doing that. So I've been working really hard on that. That's been the next thing. So I'm kind of staying put and doing a lot of work with local farms and gardens right now while I'm finishing that book up. And we'll
That's
see. I don't
great.
know. I'm wide
Wow.
open. I'm wide open after that. So yeah,
We're gonna
anyone
have
have
to
good
have you back.
ideas? You know?
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on the show when that book comes out. Now, I have a question about the
Yeah.
next book. One thing that
Yeah.
struck me right in the beginning of Round America with a Duck was how everyone would ask you, "What does your
Hmm.
husband think of this?" Right?
I
Right
know.
away, they go, "What do you,
First question.
young lady?"
I
So,
know.
did that
First
happen in
question.
Ireland as well?
Well, I will tell you the funny thing that happened, and I want to send this message out to women everywhere, is that everyone asked me that question. And then once I did this journey, no one asks me that question anymore because they assume we got it worked out, which we do. And I mean, it's just not a question anymore. Like it just doesn't come up. People are just interested now in the journey. And more often than not, what they're really interested in is their journey. And
Right.
everyone has a journey that they want to take. And if you're not interested in bikes and you're not interested in gardens or farms, you're not interested in travel, you're interested in something. And there is something just like my bike that was up in that attic for 20 years. You have something, whoever's listening or watching, you have something that's in your attic or in the attic of your brain or heart that you've been wanting to do. And this is your sign to do it. It's
Right
time.
here, you heard it here, people. This is
Yeah.
your sign to do that thing you've been waiting to do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so
Yay.
glad I met you. I'm so thankful to the Bikes Network
Mm.
where I get to, meet all these wonderful people, and you're definitely a delight. I cannot wait.
Aw,
We're
thank
going to
you.
have to do this on a regular basis because I need to hear all the updates. But thank you so
Aw.
much. It was great having
Yeah,
you.
thank you. I really appreciate everything that you're doing and all the joy that you're exuding as well. Thank you.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.
After our call, Pattie and I stayed on, and I opened my heart about some of the struggles that I'm facing as someone caught between being a joyful advocate and an angry activist. And Pattie reminded me that I need to focus on the things that bring me joy, because anger might get engagement, but being joyfully present is effective in getting more people on bikes, getting more people to understand what it means to live in community, and making roadways in making our city better. But to my counselors, I say, don't get excited. I'm not going to stop pressuring you. I need you to stand up for me and everyone else who doesn't want to have to drive everywhere. I will continue to remind you that instead of slowing down the process, we need to slow down the speeds in residential streets and stop widening roads. No more compromises when it comes to people's lives. When we focus on the safety and joy of people outside of cars, we also keep people inside of cars safer, and we encourage communities to grow. If you just found this podcast and you're wondering what my problem is, I encourage you to go back to the first episode, Pattie's version, and hear my story. And thank you as always to my Patreon supporters, Andrew Single, Michael Aben, Nikki, Halls Emporium, and Tim. If you want to be one of my favorite people, you can go to pattiebikes.com, click on podcast, and then click on the link to support me. Next week, we will be talking to Grecia Hernandez about communication and how words have an impact in how we view vulnerable road users in our society. But for now, that's her problem. Where's the stop button on this thing?